Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. If this is your first time coming across my page, kindly subscribe to my channel and hit the notification bell so you'll be notified whenever I post a new video. So in today's tutorial, we'll be talking about how to draft a basic bodice, and these are the measurements we'll be using. If you are confused about the measurements, I already did a video on how to take a basic bodice measurement. So some important things to note about this measurement. This is the full front length and this is the full back length. The full front length is always bigger than the full back length. And this is the center front length and the center back length. The center back length is always bigger than the center front length. And for the front shoulder slope and the back shoulder slope, for this measurement it's the same because the person's back is slightly bent, so it varies, but most times the front shoulder slope is bigger than the back shoulder slope. For this person, the bust is small and the back is slightly bent, that's why both are equal. While for the front shoulder and the back shoulder is always bigger than the front shoulder. For the across chest and the across back, it depends. It's either some people their back might be wider than the front, while the front might be wider than the back, so it depends on how the person is. So the next thing we'll be taking note of is the arc measurement. As we all notice, the front in the bust circumference, the bust is at the front, which made the bust bigger, the front bust bigger than the back bust. So this is the measurement, this is the calculation we'll be using to get the difference in the front bust and the back bust. So the bust circumference we'll be using is 34, and to get the front bust arc, it will be the bust circumference divided by 4. Whatever you get, you add 0.25 to it. So 34 divided by 4 plus 0.25 gave me 8.75, and that's the front bust arc. For the back bust arc, is the bust circumference divided by 4. Whatever you get, you minus 0.25 from it. So for this measurement, we have 34 divided by 4 minus 0.25, and it's giving 8.25. And when you add 8.75 plus 8.25 times 2, it will give the 34 back. So also for the waist circumference, the front waist is always bigger than the back waist, sometimes because of the tummy in front. So for this calculation, it will be the waist circumference. The waist circumference I'm using is 27 divided by 4 plus 0.25. So 27 divided by 4 plus 0.25 is 7. While for the back, the waist circumference divided by 4 minus 0.25, and that's 6.5. At the end of the day, when you add 6.5 plus 7 multiplied by 2, you get 27. For the hip, the back hip is always bigger than the front hip. The hip circumference we're using is 36. 36 divided by 4 minus 0.25 for the front hip, and we have 8.75. While for the back hip arc, the hip circumference 36 divided by 4 plus 0.25, we have 9.25. 8.75 plus 9.25, you add it together and multiply it by 2, you get 36 back. So after getting that, the next thing is to get your pattern paper. The first thing we'll be doing is to mark 2 inches from the edge of the paper. I'll be marking 2 inches from the edge of the paper. and this will act as, this will be the top line for the front. So the next thing is to put the full front length, which is 15. So the full front length is 15. Now mark it across the paper. So the next thing is the hip depth, and the hip depth for this measurement is 8.5. So I'll mark it from this is the waistline. So I'll mark the hip depth from the waistline down, 8.5. So the next thing is to mark the full back length, and the full back length is 14. So this is the back, and this will be the front side. So the full back length is 14. So I'll mark the 14 from the waistline upward. I'll mark 14 inches. Just mark it to at least almost half of the paper. So the next measurement is the center back length, and center back length is 13.5. I'll also mark it from the waistline upward. So the next thing now is to get the center, the bust line. And to get the bust line is the center back length divided by 2. Whatever you get, you minus 1 from it. And the center back length we have is 13.5. So 13.5 divided by 2 is 6.75. Minus 1 is 5.75. So we're going to mark it. We are going to mark 5.75 from the waistline upward. And I'm going to mark it across to the front side. And this is the bust line. So to get the front bust line, is the full front length minus the center back length, and the full front length is 15. The center back length is 13.5. So it will be 15 minus 13.5, which is 1.5, and that will be the front bust line. This first bust line is for the back. So we're going to mark 1.5 from this bust line upward. So mark 1.5. And this is the front bust line. So this first line we marked here is the back top line, and this line is the center back line. So the next thing is to get the across back. So to get the across back, you measure the distance from this bust line to the center back line. So for this one, I'm having 7.75. So we divide the 7.75 by 2, and I'll be having 3.875. So I'll mark it from the bust line upward, 3.875. Whatever you have from the distance from the bust line to the center back line, divide it by 2, and you get your across back. So I'll mark 3.875. If you don't understand where I'm marking 3.875 on my measuring tape, I already did a video on understanding the values on the measuring tape. So this is the across back. So to get the across chest, just measure 2 inches up from the front bust line. So I'll measure 2 inches up from the front bust line, and that will be the across chest line. So this is the across chest line. So the next thing is to get the shoulder measurement. So the front shoulder measurement is 14.5. So I'll be marking the front shoulder measurements on this front top line, and 14.5 divided by 2 is 7.25. So I'll mark 7.25, then I'll come down by like 3 inches or 3.5 inches just to get a straight line. And on this point, I'll mark 7.25 also, and I'll make a straight line. This will be the shoulder guideline. So the back shoulder is 15. This is the back top line, and that is where I'll be marking the 15. So I'll divide 15 by 2, which is 7.5, and I'll mark it on the back top line, 7.5. I'll do the same thing. I'll come down by 3 inches to get a point, and I'll mark 7.5 on that point also to get a straight line. And that's the back shoulder measurement. The next thing is to get the neck width. So to get the neck width is the bust circumference divided by 8 plus 1 divided by 2. So the bust circumference is 34. 34 divided by 8 is 4.375. Then you add 1 to it, which will be 5.375. Then you divide it by 2. For this bust circumference of 34, I'm having 2.6, and that 2.6 is the neck width I'll be using both in front and back. So it will be 2.6. And to get the neck depth for the front, whatever you have as your neck width, add 0.5 to it. So 2.6 plus 0.5 will give me 3.1, and that will be the neck width, and that will be the neck depth that I will be using. So that's the neck depth. While for the back, I will mark 2.6 on this back top line, 2.6 on the back top line, and this center back line will be the neck depth for the back. So I'll connect the line also. I'll connect it from this neck width to the neck depth, which is the center back length, and that's the neck width for the back. So the next thing is the horizontal measurement, and the horizontal measurement, the first horizontal measurement is the across chest. So the across chest measurement is 12.25. The 12.25, you divide it by 2, which will give me 6.25, and I'll be putting it on this across chest line. So in this drafting, we're going to be using this body arc. So for the front bust arc, it's 8.75, and I'll be putting that 8.75 on this front bust line, which is the front bust arc measurement, which is the front bust arc 8.75. So I'll put it on this point here. Then the next thing is the front waist arc, and the front waist arc is 7. So I'll mark it on this waistline from the edge of the paper. Then the front hip arc is 8.75. So I'll mark 8.75 on the hip line. This is the hip line. I'll mark 8.75 here. So for this front, the next thing is to get the shoulder slope, and the shoulder slope, the front shoulder slope is 15. So you put it on the waistline, you put the 15 on the waistline down to the, from this shoulder guideline down to the waistline, and I'll be having 15 here. But the standard measurement for the guideline for the shoulder slope for the front is 1.5, while the standard measurement for the back is 1.25. So I'll be using, if I put the tape here, I'll measure the distance I'm having here is almost 2 inches. So I don't want to use that. I'll just use the standard measurement, which is 1.5 in front. 1.5. So that will be the shoulder slope for the front. So for the back, I'll be using 1.25 as a shoulder slope. I'll mark it from this back top line, 1.25. So the across back measurement is 14. I'll divide 14 by 2, which will give me 7, and that will be the measurement that I'll be using for the across back. While the back bust arc, the back bust arc is 8.25, and I'll be marking it on this bust line, 8.25. While the back waist arc is 6.5. I'll mark it from this edge of the paper. I'll mark 6.5. And for the hip, the back hip arc is 9.25. So I'll also mark it from this edge of the paper, 9.25. So after marking the points, the next thing is to connect all the points. So I'll be connecting this, which will be the armhole first, and I'll connect it from this 1.5 to this across chest to the front bust line. You can connect it once, but if connecting it once is not going, you connect it twice. You can connect these two first before you connect it to this one. But for now, the 3 points is connecting, so I'll just connect it once. So I'll connect the front bust to the waist and to the hip. If there's any question, you can drop it in the comments section. I'll be answering any question there. So for the back, I will do the same thing. I'll connect this point to this point, then to the bust line. So it's the same thing. If you cannot connect it once, you connect it twice. So I'll also connect from the bust line to the waistline, then to the hip line. So the next thing is to get the dart line. To get the dart line for front is the bust span divided by 2, and the bust span is 7.5 divided by 2 is 3.75. So I'll mark it from this hip line to the across chest. I'll mark 3.75 from the hip line to the across chest. And I'll make a straight line. while for the back is the across back divided by 4. The across back is 14 divided by 4 is 3.5. So I'll mark it from the hip line to the across back line. I'll mark 3.5 from the edge of the paper to the across back line. So the next thing is to get our dart amount. Before that, we'll be drawing a straight line. We'll draw a straight line from the front bust line to the hip line, and also from the bust line at the back to the hip line. So to get the dart amount, whatever you have here, you divide it by 3. For this side, I'm having 1.75, and 1.75 divided by 3 is 0.58. So I'll mark 0.5 from this straight line in, and I'll mark it on both sides of the dart line. So I'll mark 0.5 on this straight line in and on both sides of the dart line. So I'll mark it on this side of the dart line and also on this side of the dart line. So also for the back, I'll measure the amount here, and I'm having 2 inches. So 2 divided by 3 will give me 0.6. So I'll mark it from the straight line in, and I'll mark it on both sides of the dart line. I'll mark 0.6 from this straight line, and I'll mark it on both sides of the dart line. So where I'll be connecting this dart on the hip line, whatever I have as my hip depth, I'll divide it by 4. So my hip depth is 8.5 divided by 4 is 2.1. So I'll mark it from the hip line upward. I'll mark 2.1 on this dart line. I'll mark it on the straight line here, and I'll do the same thing for the back. I'll mark 2.1 also. So I'll be connecting this dart amount here to the 2.1 I marked. And I'll do the same thing also for the side seam. This is the side seam. I'll do the same thing for the side seam. Then I'll be doing it also at the back. I'll mark the dart amount to the 2.1 point I marked. So for the back, I'll mark 1 inch from the bust line, and that's where I'll be connecting this dart amount to at the back. I marked 1 inch. Then for this side seam, I'll just connect it to the bust line. So while for the front, I'll mark my bust depth, and the bust depth is 8.5. I'll mark it from this shoulder line. I'll mark 8.5. Then from that 8.5 points I marked, I'll come down by 1 inch. So that's where I'll be connecting that amount in front to the 1 inch points that I marked. Then I'll be connecting this back to the front bust line. So I'll also connect my the neck width to the shoulder guideline. This will now be the shoulder line. Then I'll do the same thing for the back also. So as you can see, for the side seam, the front side seam is longer than the back side seam. So to make them equal, we would have to take a side dart, and to take that side dart, you measure 2 inches from this front bust line. You come down by 2 inches here, and after coming down by 2 inches, you come down by the difference between the full front length and the center back length. And the difference between the full front length, which is 15 minus 13.5, is 1.5. After coming down by 2 inches, you come down by the difference between the full front length and the center back length, which is 1.5 for this measurement. So you connect it. Where you connect it to, you mark 1 inch from this bust depth point here. You mark 1 inch out. So this is the 1 inch point here. So that's where we connect the side dart to. So that's it. And another thing you need to know, you just mark a point here in between this 1.5, which is 0.75. Just mark a point here and come out by 0.2 or 0.3 inches. This point here is just after folding the dart, so you will not have shortage of your fabric or the paper. That's why you're coming out by that amount, and you connect it back to the bust line. You connect it, you come out at this point by the 0.3. After you come out by that point by 0.3, then you connect it back to this straight line. So after folding the paper, you don't have any shortage there. So that's it about drafting the basic bodice. So some important things to note is that these lines here, this first line we drew, will no longer be using it, and this straight line also will no longer be using it. This line here becomes the new side seam. So also for the back, we'll no longer be using this straight line here, and we'll no longer use this line here. This new line we drew, that will be the new side seam. Another thing, some important things to also take note after drafting is to check if your measurements are correct. So the first measurement we'll be checking is the shoulder measurement, and this shoulder measurement I'm having in the front is 5 inches. I'll also compare it to the shoulder at the back, and I'm also having 5 inches, which means the two shoulders are balanced. In the case where the shoulders are not balanced, you have to check the shoulder slope for the front and the back. You, instead of using the standard, you would use the person's actual shoulder slope if the shoulders are not balanced. Another thing is to check the armhole measurement, and the armhole measurement for this pattern is 16 inches. So we're going to measure the armhole, and to measure the armhole, place the tape on this bust line, on the front bust line, and measure the amount we're having here. So for here we're having 8.6. So from that 8.6, you place it on the back, and you also measure it. So we're having exactly 16 inches, which is correct. But in the case where the armhole in the pattern is smaller than the armhole of the person, the first thing you will do is, instead to get this bust line, instead of subtracting 1, you subtract 1.5. But in the case you don't want to subtract 1.5, you come down from this bust line both in front and in back. You come down from the bust line by 0.5 and you reconnect the armhole. You do the same thing for the back, and after reconnecting the armhole, from that point of the new armhole, that's where you would mark the 2 inches down before you mark the difference between the full front length and the center back length to get the new side dart, because you no longer be using this original front bust line. But the best thing is just to minus 1.5 to get the bust line. You just minus 1.5 instead of subtracting 1 if you don't want to come down by 0.5. So the next thing now is to check if the waist measurement is correct after removing the darts. So we'll measure from this new side seam, this point to this point, and from this point to the edge of the paper. So we'll take our tape and measure it. So for this place, I'm having, from this point to this point, I'm having about 3.7. So from that 3.7, I'll place it here, and I'm having 7 inches. I'm having 7 inches, which is my front waist arc. So the front waist is correct. So I'll do the same thing for the back waist. I'll measure it from this point to this point, and I'll omit this dart amount here, and I'll measure it from this point to the edge of the paper. So from this point, I'm having 2.6. So from that 2.6, I'll place the 2.6 at this point here, and I'm having 6.5, which is my back waist arc. And that's it about the pattern drafting. I hope this video was very, very clear.